You got another installment of the truth of the COVID pandemic and Anthony Fauci and his real role in all of this.
And you will not let this thing go.
This is what, the fourth
I'm
installment?
like a pit bull. This is the fourth edition.
Nice.
And the timing couldn't be better because I think what Elon Musk is doing with his expose of USAID and the episode that I do with Dr. Richard Ebright, who has been the guy who has been hounding Fauci all the way back to 2001.
Yeah.
And he has receipts for all of these crimes. But the story that very much coincides with Doge is that NIAID, which Fauci heads, and USAID were basically money laundering operations to do wildly dangerous research on biological weapons agents because DOD and all these other defense agencies had a biological weapons compliance office that wouldn't allow them to do it. So they did it through these other agencies, and Fauci ran amok.
Including the lab in Wuhan.
Yes.
Precisely the lab in Wuhan. But you'll have nightmares when you watch this episode because there have been so many near misses with viruses far more dangerous than COVID that have happened because explicitly of Fauci. And every time he's been exposed, going all the way back to 2004, he's like, everything's fine. I know what I'm doing. The risk is worth taking.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he would say it publicly. He would say it in front of the committees, and he would sort of bully them into submission. So it's a bipartisan problem that goes all the way back to Dick Cheney's obsession with biological weapons. And after the anthrax scare, this funding exploded, but it's all centralized through Anthony Fauci.
Right.
After the anthrax scare, another creation by our own federal government.
Wow.
Yeah, so like one of the things that Ebright talks about is that eventually we discovered that the anthrax scare was in fact purposefully leaked by one of these researchers in one of these Fauci-funded research facilities.
He wanted people to be aware of it, right?
Well, the anthrax scare happens right before or right after 9/11.
Right after 9/11, yep.
Yeah.
And right before they pass all of this funding for all of this new research.
Right.
And magically, and I don't know what the truth is, but magically, the guy that was accused of this commits suicide before he can be prosecuted.
Wow.
Coincidental.
Yeah.
Totally.
Of course.
It's always coincidental,
Of course.
man.
Yeah.
People are so depressed.
It's amazing how many coincidences there have been over the years, isn't it? It's kind of incredible. So I don't know that I was really aware of Dick Cheney's fascination with chemical weapons, with biological weapons. Is that something that's well known? What was he?
I don't think it's well known, and I think that's one of the important reveals in this episode that Ebright was there. This is, he's a molecular biologist. He's doing his thing. He's a celebrated, primarily on the left. He's in the New York Times all the time talking about his work, and suddenly, he's tackling this stuff, and it becomes his obsession. Like this, and his point is, this is potentially end of the world stuff if we get it wrong.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
COVID will look like the common cold,
Right.
in comparison to what they've got brewing, no doubt.
Yeah.
What is the deal with the gain of function research? Why do they do that only so that they can develop vaccines? Is that the excuse for it? They try to make this transmittable to humans. They try to make it something that can spread throughout the globe just so that they can come up with an antidote for it? Is that their excuse, or why are we even doing that kind of research?
It's kind of think about the worst central planner with the most fatal conceit about how smart they are and how they could sort of reimagine the world. And I'm speaking of Anthony Fauci. He wants to map out any potential threat, including ones that can be created, and then come up with a solution to that.
Okay. Yeah.
And in the process, either purposefully or not, these things are unleashed on the world.
Yeah.
Right.
It does not seem worth the risk, I don't think, to rank and file Americans. I mean, why take that chance? Because we've already seen the results of it.
Yeah.
How many people had to die just from COVID? And again, that'll be a picnic in comparison to something even more deadly.
Yeah, so Dick Cheney's the bad guy, but you go back even further, and Richard Nixon is the good guy. He signs the biological weapons treaty that countries had agreed to. And this is what Cheney is upset about, because there's too many constraints on his research agenda. And
How dare they make restraints?
and he's jawboning the
restraints
Department
on
of Defense to get more aggressive and walk up to what Richard Ebright calls the red line.
Right.
Wow.
And Fauci was doing that all along too, because when they said that he couldn't do the gain of function, he would just give money to other research facilities that would then give money to Wuhan to do the gain of function research.
And by the way, it diverts money from all the other research. So there's actual
good
useful
point.
research about things that are actually killing people, things that we could develop cures for.
I mean,
But it all gets diverted.
Yeah.
Post 2001.
It's enraging because we go through the USAID stuff and we see the monumental ways that we're spending wasteful money, just hand over fist internationally for just ridiculous things, and then we've got our we're sowing our own demise through this kind of research. It is madness. What good could we actually do as a nation if we spent this money on noble stuff?
It's probably reminding people. It's worth reminding people where Dick Cheney was in this last election.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
Because
point,
perhaps lifting the lid on this exposes crimes against humanity that will be his legacy as well as Fauci's.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to this installment. This is great. Even though a lot of us only became aware of Anthony Fauci in 2020 because of COVID, and he was front and center with that. I mean, he dates back clear to the HIV/AIDS situation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to tell us a little bit about his involvement there.
It's always been the most shocking thing about what Anthony Fauci did during the AIDS crisis. First of all the people, including Deborah Birx, they all come from his AIDS era.
The Fauci tree, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the thing he did that was so irresponsible, which he actually did again during COVID, was he wrote an academic journal with no scientific evidence to support his claim that the AIDS virus could be casually transmitted within a household, if that sounds familiar.
Right. Toilet seat time.
And created all of the demonization of the gay community in the process. And so, like, in pre-COVID, he was the bad guy. Everybody knew he was the bad guy. He was persona non grata on the left, and magically, a switch was flipped.
Yeah.
And he became. I have my Fauci prayer candle in my studio.
Yeah. Right.
we
got ours right over
We got
here.
one right there.
Upside down.
And he became a godlike figure.
He sure did.
That's some great government psyops right
Sure
there.
is.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I mean, we have senators, saying what a great thing Big Pharma is now. Democratic senators.
Yeah,
Right.
Bernie.
Right.
Bernie's on
And
board.
Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
Yes. And who was it just today? Didn't we
Elizabeth.
play a clip of?
Yeah,
was it
yeah.
Elizabeth? Okay. And so, how do you feel about the pardon then that just happened with Anthony Fauci? That he's been pardoned for any crime that he committed, dating back to who knows when.
I mean,
Well,
are you upset as we are that we didn't get one?
Yeah. I think you guys probably want one, right, at this point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just in case.
Yes.
I want a prospective one just to sort of forgive
Yeah.
me for
What I
future
might
crime.
do in the future. Yeah.
Well,
Please.
so Fauci gives up his Fifth Amendment right to not speak.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
Rand Paul is now the committee chairman with new subpoena power
Okay.
to call Anthony Fauci in. And he has two choices. He can either tell the truth or he can perjure himself, which is not covered under his pardon.
Okay.
And so in a strange way,
So this might be worse for him then.
it's worse for him, but it's also worse for whoever his boss is. Because this is not Fauci. This goes all the way up the chain of command. And I keep asked Rand Paul this in the episode I did with him. Who is Anthony Fauci's boss? I don't know who that is. I can imagine it's probably heads of these agencies.
Did Rand Paul know?
No. And I
Interesting.
asked him when he was
Wow.
minority ranking member of the Government Oversight Committee. He's now the chairman.
Yeah.
All these people in government think they have no boss.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they don't.
Someone has to be their boss, right?
He says when it comes to defense and intelligence, even the oversight committees can't get answers. And this is the problem. And this goes...
Yeah.
That's chilling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really chilling. So as a libertarian, Matt, again, we're speaking to Matt Kibbe. He's got another episode of the COVID pandemic and Anthony Fauci coming up. By the way, when is that released? When do we?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday on BlazeTV.
Awesome. Yes.
Okay. So as a libertarian, what is your take on this presidency in the first 16 days here?
So I've never said this publicly before, and you guys don't know this, but I actually voted for Trump this time.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like a card carrying libertarian. I'm not just like a weekend libertarian.
I know.
And I had run a super PAC against him for Senator Rand Paul when he was running for president, and I ran a super PAC for Gary Johnson against Donald Trump, and it was the confluence of the Maha and the Elon Musk coalition, the Tech Bros, and Trump's appearance at the Libertarian National Convention. I think a lot of people don't remember this, but at the Libertarian National Convention, Trump promised a number of things that we loved, including, and this is more than symbolic, a commutation of Ross Ulbricht's sentence.
Yep.
And it's. I guess I won't get into that story too much, but Ross Ulbricht was basically the first example of extreme lawfare by the Justice Department because he created a blockchain website that used Bitcoin.
Right.
Oh.
And they wanted to make an example out of him. So he ends up convicted of no violent crimes. He convicted of building a website. He ends up with a double life sentence.
Jeez. What?
In a high security prison.
Yeah.
And
wow.
For us libertarians, this is about a fundamental injustice, but it's also about this question, the war on crypto, the war on privacy.
Yeah.
The great concerns that the deep state has that we might actually be able to have workarounds around their controls. So that's one obvious thing that libertarians got, and Trump promised it. And he kept his promise. But the Doge stuff is amazing.
Yeah, it is,
and
it's unprecedented. Well, at least in this century, probably since 1920, we've never seen anything like it. It's pretty amazing.
I also happen to think that RFK Jr. is going to do a tremendous job shaking up a corrupt to the core Health and Human Services. Jay Bhattacharya at NIH, the same agency that censored him, just on and on. Lots of cool stuff happening.
Yeah, good. Do you have
That's awesome. No, I was just reminding Matt 1 minute.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Oh, we thought you had your hand
comment.
raised.
Yeah, I thought it was like,
oh, Jeffy's
I got
chiming
a
in
burning
here.
question.
No, that was the universal. Shut
wrap
up.
it up.
Shut up, please.
Wrap it up.
So what's your favorite thing then? I guess the pardon, obviously, of Ulbricht was big. I mean, is this better? I mean, I think we all agree this is better than we could have anticipated.
Yeah, it's much better. And obviously, I'm skeptical of all politicians, and there's going to be plenty that I don't like.
Sure.
But
so far, so good.
So far, my job is to amplify the things that he's doing right.